The new inflation bombshell. Well, what's that? Well, bottom line is inflation's coming down. And so if we look at the CPI numbers this week, CPI surprised on the downside, with headline CPI coming in negative on the month. That acted to bring the overall annualized CPI number coming to bring it down. And as you can see on this chart here, we can see the 6-month annualized, the 12-month change, and the 3-month annualized change. You can really see in the short term how rapidly inflation has been coming down just on average here over the last 3 months. So what does that mean? Well, we've been in a market which has been fixated on inflation, quite rightly so, for a long time now. And as we're starting to see inflation coming down and component parts within that, the long-awaited shelter component and housing component within the inflationary reports have started coming down. And that's a good thing as far as inflation is concerned. And on the back of that, what we've seen, as you can see here for the dollar index, is the dollar itself has come down because as inflation comes down, it brings down yields, bond yields here, got 10-year yields up. So 10-year yields come down, which normally acts as a headwind to the dollar. So if we come back to the dollar index, and look at how it's been falling here, then we'll do a little bit more analysis here. Then this is the bombshell that inflation is done. That story, although we're very much still in the thick of it, it's highly likely it's done. There will be other stories, other narratives. Growth is going to be important because we're already starting to see in the US some of their PMI numbers are weakening economically, and we are seeing the unemployment rate creeping up, which is what the Fed wants. So we're in this Goldilocks scenario whereby, I say Goldilocks at the moment, whereby the Fed are getting a slightly cooling economy, which they sort of want that unemployment rate to tick up a little bit. So it was very tight labour market. And if they can manage it into a soft landing, and what they mean by that is, just a cooling of the economy, then as they then start to drop rates, great. So the rates pricing is that September is looking like a done deal, but with the potential to then cut in either November or December. Those are the 3 meetings. They won't cut in July. Or both of those, in fact. Some pricing is already coming in as traders are starting to think maybe they do 3 cuts this year. But we'll stick with the 2 for now anyway. So on the back of that, as we can see, the dollar index has fallen over this last couple of weeks, but it had a real helping hand on the back of that inflation report on Thursday. Now, part of this significant drop was the Bank of Japan. They intervened in the yen, and so they used the weaker data out of the US and to buy yen, and so that created this huge move here in the dollar yen and other yen pairs. So, and of course, the yen makes up about 17% of the basket of currencies that are in the dollar index, the currencies against the dollar in the dollar index. So that helped bring the dollar down further. But what about from there onwards? Well, as we can already see technically for the dollar, it's come right into what has been a pretty important level down here. So it's coming into that as we speak. I'm recording this Saturday morning. But what about beyond that? Well, we need to see more data, don't we, really? So if I come out to a weekly time frame and then I put my trend lines on, you'll see that there's a trend line going back to 2021. Nice trend line going all the way through here. And where is it? It's right, if I go back to the daily chart, we're right on that trend line as we speak and breaking it, really. So yes, technically we've got to break through these levels, but then I've got this thicker level around 103. So let's go and have a look out to the weekly chart as far as that 103 level is concerned. In fact, I'm going to need to take this way out to, there we go, to a monthly chart. So you can see the significance of that. So it looks like increasingly like we will end up working our way to 103 as traders are starting to speculate on not only inflation, but we're seeing some cooling numbers out of the US economy. The US economy is still doing really well overall, but certainly cooling a little bit here. So the dollar is going to have some question marks about it. So as far as the inflation bombshell is concerned, the bombshell is that the inflation narrative is likely done now, and we're going to carry on seeing inflationary numbers generally coming down. There'll be blips along the way, of course. You're always going to get the odd report that will be a blip, but it looks that way. So, and if that's the case, and it doesn't guarantee a weaker dollar because it depends on what's going on in the stock market as well, that has an impact on the dollar and other asset classes. But keeping it nice and simple for now, we should see the dollar correct back into at least into this 103 zone. Then we can look at it from there. So, but ultimately, if I come out to a quarterly chart, then I've just got a 50 period moving average on here. Then the scope potentially to ultimately run all the way back and retest this lower trend channel line is always there as well. So something to look out for the future. But for now, it looks increasingly like the dollar index has got further to fall, and that then corresponds to what we're seeing in the likes of the pound dollar here and other currencies against the dollar. Look at the run that the pound dollar's had just in this last 2 weeks. Same with the Aussie dollar. It's had a good run. Even the euro dollar, which has shrugged off those French elections and what's happened and all the turmoil from that in France, and had quite a rally itself as well. Not to the same extent as the pound, as you can see, which has broken out some new highs for the year, but nevertheless, it's playing catch up. So these currencies, again, if I come out to the weekly chart for the likes of the pound, that doesn't look, of course there'll be pullbacks, but it looks like pullbacks are there to be bought. And on that note, have a wonderful weekend. If you're watching the European Championship finals, enjoy and don't drink too much. Have a lovely weekend.